All right. And, during the entire time we have together, if you feel like you're getting jumpy or your mind's moving left or right and you're sort of losing track of things, just do a breath like that. It's a great form of mindfulness. Uh, and it just brings you back. It just brings you back. Now, both the Tibetans and the Trappists, my two main teaching lines, they s- they actually have the same language. They talk about the four kind of legs on the altar of having a meditation practice. The first leg is sacred reading. Uh, what the Trappists or the Christians call lectio divina. Lectio is reading, and divina is sacred or the divine. So to always have a kind of source of incoming sacred reading, uh, just to just sort of charge you up. My my mentor at the monastery, Father Gregory, used to say, if you want to keep the fire going, you got to throw some logs on it. And so that was his idea. That's what the monks do early in the morning. They probably most likely are reading from scripture most of the time, either Old Testament or New Testament. But it's a wider thing than that, as today's poem will indicate. Uh, One of the books I'm just coming off of for my Lectio Divina was the Book of Joy, uh, which chronicled a week that Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama hung out at the Dalai Lama's place in Dharamsala, India, and talked about serious things. It's a great book. If you haven't come upon it or heard me talking about it, it's a great book. I have it here. Uh, yeah, the Book of Joy. And the picture on the back cover is what you were seeing today. It was from the Dalai Lama's 80th birthday party, where Tutu, he's sort of a trickster kind of wisdom figure. He brought like those kind of funny candles from the United States that when you blow out, they come back up again. So he was always pranking the Dalai Lama, and he was much more of a prankster than the Dalai Lama was. But so they were dancing, and actually, it's against the codes of the Tibetan monks to dance, but the Dalai Lama got into it there. He got into it. At his 80th, he said, "What the hell?" And they just started dancing with Tutu. So a good book. If you haven't read that, and it's a great book for in a kind of dark time that we're coming out of, to get a book with these two guys. These guys are spiritual masters in their own traditions. Today's poem is dedicated to these two guys. So there's Lectio Divina, spiritual reading. Then there's your daily formal meditation. They both agree on that, and then they all have a form of on the fly 24/7 mindfulness meditation, ways to keep bringing yourself back to the here and now. And then the fourth one would be periodic intensive retreats. And so that's really one of the reasons I put one Saturday a month, put a kind of intensive, because you break through areas of resistance within an intensive. So those are the four, what they call the four legs on the altar of meditation: Lectio Divina, uh, daily meditation, 24/7 mindfulness, and then every once in a while uh, a deeper kind of intensive meditation thing. So just today's poem, it just sort of came about as I shifted over from reading the Book of Joy in the morning to reading a book on string theory, uh, superstring theory. So it seems like it's sort of like a jump, and it is sort of a jump, but that's just the way it is. So this is the poem, and I dedicate it to His Holiness and to the Archbishop. I know it sounds a bit odd to be doing morning sacred reading these last few days on Einstein's special and general theory of relativity. But if God is isness without limit, then perhaps to spend time contemplating the expanding universe, in an odd way, might just be the ultimate Lectio Divina. And just as Einstein discovered that gravity altered the fabric of space time, so too do spiritual masters, human beings who have spent years exploring the heart space of consciousness. So too have they discovered that being drawn into the event horizon of God day in and day out for decades transforms them mysteriously into light and joyous beings dancing with the gravitas of love. Yeah, that's who these two guys. That's how you get to be guys like the Dalai Lama and uh, the Archbishop. You've done the work, and just as Einstein discovered that gravity altered the fabric of space-time. He took Newton. Newton's theory of gravity stood up for 3 centuries until Einstein found a flaw in it. And so that was his special theory of relativity, called the special theory of relativity. And then, which basically of the universe, which was the light. That was the speed limit. You couldn't go faster than that. And so he factored that in. It changed it subtly, and then he realized that gravity itself, the general theory that gravity itself altered the fabric of space and time. Actually, you look around, doesn't seem like to be space, doesn't seem like to be anything, but he saw it as a kind of fabric. And actually, in the special theory of relativity, just basically he found out that gravity itself altered these things. And so I got to thinking about gravity this morning, and then uh, thinking about guys like the Dalai Lama and Tutu, spiritual masters. These are human beings who have spent years exploring inner space, exploring the heart space, I like to call it, the heart space of consciousness. And they discovered that being drawn into the what scientists call the event horizon, being drawn into the event horizon of God, day in and day out for decades, it changes you, it transforms you mysteriously into light and joyous beings dancing with the gravitas of love. This is the mysterious thing that happens. These two guys, and it's really, if you could be like a fly on the wall for a week with these two guys, and they're talking about the most tragic things in the world. Both of them had very tragic lives, and yet they're so joyous. They're laughing, they're joking around, and that's not to put down the tremendous tragedy they both experienced. Tutu is the oldest. He's 4 years older than Dalai Lama. He was, born a black child in South Africa, had polio, overcame that, had TB, overcame that, overcame apartheid, become, Archbishop, and also to become a Nobel Peace winner. It's not bad. Well, he didn't do it just because he's a great human being. He did it because he had this day in, day out, dropping down, falling into this event horizon of God. When like a photon is going through space and it's nothing, just cruising along at 186,000 miles per second. And then if it nicks into the event horizon of a black hole, goes in. If it just skirts it, it's fine. It keeps going. So these, when they discovered black holes, These are areas where they're so dense, the material is so dense itself, so the gravity is so immense that it pulls things in. Even light can't escape. That's why they call them black holes. Well, this event horizon of God is a little bit like that. Maybe is what gave, because we still don't know what gave rise to the first ultra black hole that finally got so dense that it exploded outward. I mean, these are great mysteries. We don't know that. We don't know, nobody's come up with that and probably never will. But that's why I say these guys are transformed mysteriously, because it's a mysterious thing that we're doing here when you're going into inner space. See, we're making this incredible journey here. Every time you just sit down for a moment and stop worrying about the exteriors of your life and you go inward and you drop. I like to say you're dropping you're dropping the old brainstem, our instinctive brain that we had as babies, that instinctively we were meant to go to mom. Instinctively we're meant to, look for security and survival, affection and esteem. And then, by the time you get to be 2 years old, power and control, the terrible twos we call them, because all of a sudden, no, me do it, and no, I'll feed myself and all that. That's all just natural stuff. And that's how we develop. But the problem is then as we develop the new brain, they call it the cerebral cortex, the left brain primarily, um, totally more strategic and powerful instrument. But we took the same kind of drives, the instinctive drives, and so then we try to strategize with our left brain. How do we get security? How do we get everybody's esteem? How do we get power and control? We still playing the same game that a kid did, that the infant did, and we're so But when I taught like in a grade school for 20 years. Oh man, it was a big surprise when the little kindergarten kids came in and the strategy they were using with mom didn't work with the teachers. It was like a crisis. And we, if they had a little, if they really had the benefit and to be able to understand that, well, that was fine for being at home, but now when you're getting into grade school, um, the strategic mind is not for running those old programs, see. And as a matter of fact, the strategic mind's terrific, but you cannot find peace there. You cannot find lasting happiness there. It's just not gettable. I'm sorry to tell you this. But somebody needs to tell you this. That thing is for technical stuff. Um, it's great, mechanical stuff, survival stuff. Sure, yeah, but not for happiness stuff. Not for joy. Not for meaning. It's part of it, but on its own, it can't do it. So that's when I say that the whole deal, at least my image of it, the whole deal of meditation is dropping these two brains, the body brain and the mind brain, into the heart. That's why I talk about meditators journeying into heart space. If you're looking for the center of gravitas in a human being, when you meet a person who is heartful, wholehearted, we're sort of drawn to those people. I am. That's why you get drawn to people, because they have a gravity there, because they're not top heavy. They're not sort of, they're not just living in the life of the mind. If I, and everything changes when it comes into the heart and out of the heart. It gets transformed down here. Up here, again, when you get into areas of relationships, the big stuff, relationships, love, aging, life and death, mortality, when you get into those big things, meaning, this is an auxiliary help, but it's not the main help. You have to understand what it means to, when I would do when I was doing in-person retreats for people, and I did in-person retreats called the Amazing Grace of Aging, the question we held, or sort of sat with all during the weekend, was, How does it feel to age in the heart? It's a very different feeling. It's a very different experience to age in the heart, as opposed to age in the mind. What does mortality feel like in the heart as opposed to in the mind? Ernst Becker wrote a book in the 80s, early 80s, about culture and death. And he just basically said, culture is designed to distract us from thinking about death. Yeah, but think about it. Think about it. Yeah, it really is. It really is. Not that death is, thinking about death is maybe a little bit morbid, but actually contemplating death isn't. For instance, the Trappists, who are like spin-offs of the Benedictine orders, they were kind of reformers of the Benedictine orders when the Benedictines got sort of fat and sassy, and they lost their way, so the Trappists reformed them. But in the rule of Saint Benedict, it said, always keep death before you. Always keep your death before you. Not morbid. Wake up. This does not go on forever in this form. Anyway, and actually the Trappists went so far as they would have the brain pans of previous monks, on their dinner tables with candles in them. And so they're always looking at brother somebody's skull there. Maybe that's pretty strong, but you tend not to drift too much. You tend not to drift too much when you're realizing, hey, that's going to be me someday. Culture convinces us we can live forever, or not to think about it, you see. So these guys, the masters, Suzuki, who taught me, the Dalai Lama, Tutu in the Christian, Thomas Keating, Merton. It's in all traditions. Rumi, the guys who are the inner travelers into the heart space, into this like event horizon of God. If God is isness without limit, which I think that's is as close as you can get to defining God. When the Dalai Lama was asked if he believed in God, he said that all depends. He said it depends on, if you're talking about what Thomas Merton believed about God, my answer would be yes. Well, that would cause the tsunamis in the Buddhist world because you're not supposed to go there. But isness without limit, which is the same thing as talking about the expanding universe. You can't put a circle around it. You can't define it, you see. And the chance meditation gives you is to drop down into that. That's why all the techniques are there, to just help you get a little bit of unstuckness from both the instinctive mind that wants comfort all the time, that wants security, that wants, how am I doing here? It's affection and esteem, and, trying to be the best meditator in the world, and all these kind of crazy things, power and control, those things you got to drop down. You have to sort of release those a little bit. Yeah. And then also release the mind's trying to strategize your meditation, trying to control your meditation. That's why falling, dropping those down, falling into the meditative state is the way to do it. Because a fall you can't control, you see. So that's why falling in love is always sort of tied in there. You read the Song of Songs. Somehow that book survived in the Old Testament. It's about falling in love, but the deeper level is about falling into God. You see, and you can't control that. Any attempt to control a relationship doesn't work. Any attempt to control falling into going into meditation won't work either. You see, so it's tricky. It's tricky, but well, okay. So let's just dive in. We'll try to fall into the heart space.